natural talent.
Let me take you to the highlands, baby. Anything I live wild and crazy.
They got me locked in Gatesville in Coeur County.
Watch how a man talks about the mother of his baby, because not long after he said this out loud for the whole internet to hear, she was found dead.
Look, bro, the whole time, right? My baby mama been doing shit the whole time in our relationship, and she blaming everything on me, like making me look like the bad person.
She read tarot cards for a living, warning strangers all over the country about the dangers walking into their lives, and yet the one danger she could not see coming was already sitting inside her own home. Stay with me, because before this video is over, you are going to meet 3 people who all showed the world a warning sign before the end, and every one of these stories runs right through the world of rap. To understand how a woman who guided other people through their darkest moments ended up losing her own life on her living room floor, you have to know who Shazmin Clark really was, and you have to know her long before Alonzo Hunter ever showed up. Shazmin Tashawn Clark was born on August 31st, 1993 in Kingsville, Texas, a small town down near Corpus Christi, and at some point her family moved north toward Austin, where she graduated from Del Valle High School around 2011. She had her first child at 17, which meant that while a lot of her classmates were still worried about prom, she was already learning how to be somebody's mother, and that job never really stopped for the rest of her life.
So pussy so good and tight that you hear that pussy talking at night. Come here. When I first saw you, I already knew there was something inside of you, something I thought that I would never find.
By the time she was grown, Shazmin was raising 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters. And if you ask anybody who knew her, those kids were the whole point of everything she did. She was the loud, bright, funny one in the family, the kind of woman who loved pink, loved to dance, but underneath all that color, she was pouring herself into her children every single night, making sure they had what they needed before she ever thought about herself. And you have to remember where she came from to understand that kind of devotion, because Shazmin had been finding a way since she was a teenager with a baby, turning hard beginnings into a life she built with her own 2 hands. She started her reading business in her 20s and grew it into a real brand, one client at a time, off nothing but her gift and her hustle. That is the woman we are talking about. Somebody who was hungry in a way you could feel through the screen, and generous in a way that cost her something. And it is exactly why her ending sits so wrong with everybody who knew her. Her sister said it best when she sat down to talk about the woman the world lost, and it is worth hearing the love sitting inside every word. Listen to how her sister described the person she grew up next to.
She was a very kind and giving person. Like, she helped a lot of people. Like, she would give literally the shirt off her back.
Outside of being a mother, Shazmin built a real business for herself online. She went by the name Shaz the Reader, and she worked as a tarot reader and spiritual advisor, offering love readings, future predictions, cleansings, and protection to clients who paid her over video calls. Her bio called her a simple spiritual advisor, mother, and entrepreneur, and people trusted her because she was genuinely good at what she did.
Okay, guys. Let's see what we get here for a general read. Okay, I do see some of you guys moving on here from something that no longer serves you. Know that you do deserve the world. So you do deserve better, and you know it. So moving on from, I feel like it is a person. Moving on from this person is the best thing you could have done for current energy. Yep, that's crazy. What did I just say? This is someone you're moving on from. We do have the 2 of Cups here. Knight of Swords. I do feel like this is a masculine. I also feel like this person did keep you in a confusion mindset. Feel like this person kept you confused. We have the Page of Wands in reverse, lack of direction, delays, conflict, poor communication with this relationship here. Give me one more card, please. One more card. What goes with the poor connection? What goes with the poor communication? My bad. Heartbreak. So yeah, this person continued to break your heart. I do feel like nothing was working or getting better. You wanted this Wheel of Fortune. You wanted things to turn out in your favor as far as the relationship. But this person kept you in the blind. And I just don't feel like this person was good for you.
Some of her clients swore she called things out before there was any proof at all, like warning one person about a partner who was cheating or steering another away from a business deal that would have cost them everything. That is the piece of this story that cuts the deepest, because a woman whose entire gift was helping other people dodge the danger coming for them somehow could not dodge the danger that was already living in her own home. People online loved her for that gift, and they leaned on her, which is part of what made the early days with hunters so easy to miss for what they were. In the beginning, he looked like a supportive man showing up for his woman, posting the two of them together and playing the part of a proud new father. And by the time the mask slipped, they already shared a child and a whole life. That slow turn from sweet to controlling is the trap so many people never see closing around them until it's already shut.
No bullshit. This is our woman. Tell him, babe.
Yes, it's the woman.
So boom. Okay. I say, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm coming out the A. You know that I'm about to make a way. Yeah, 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 baby girl, what's your name? I can tell you been through pain. You ain't gotta worry about that no more, cause I'm hold you tight and ain't gonna let you go. Baby girl, don't you cry, cause every little thing is gonna be alright. You ain't gotta worry about that no more, cause I'm hold you tight and ain't gonna let you go. Yeah, I know that you been hurt in the past. I hope you don't do me like my mama did my daddy. Yeah. I'ma get to this, she played.
Looking back now, the red flags were stacked one on top of another. The isolation, the constant accusations, the way he policed who she could be around and picked apart messages that were only ever about her work. Each one on its own might sound like an insecure man going through a rough patch, but lined up together, they formed the exact blueprint that advocates spend their whole careers warning people about. The hardest truth in the whole thing is that Shazman was reading those same warning signs for other people, telling strangers to watch out for the danger creeping into their lives, even as the danger crept all the way into hers. The danger had a name, and that name was Alonzo Ezekiel Hunter, a 27-year-old from Beaumont who had recently walked out of prison and was chasing a rap career under the name Azoy. They got together in 2024, not long after his release, and in the beginning, it looked like something sweet.
Me and my mom and my stepdad. 4. 5.
Baby, get it in, man. Yeah. Baby, get it in pregnant. Go ahead.
Mama, get it in pregnant. Look at her. Look at her, guys. Look at her.
Tell my baby, eat your food. Breakfast in bed, man. I love baby, man. I love this girl. Look at this. Eggs, bacon, fruit.
That's a bagel.
He posted couple pictures and videos from their baby shower, and by September of 2024, they welcomed a daughter together. So on paper, this should have been the start of a family. He even made a song called Letter to A for their little girl, pouring his feelings about their arguments into music.
You fucking with it like this whole shit, this whole ain't coming, man. This song I wrote to my daughter called Letter to A. Now, for real. I love you, yeah,
you my everything. I'm glad that you finally came. Yeah, she won't be the same. Hey, son, I love you. Yeah, you my everything.
And to an outsider, it might have looked like a man trying to grow. Underneath all of that, though, something darker was already taking root, and it didn't take long at all to show its face. The controlling started small, the way it almost always does. He didn't want her going out without him. He pushed her to have more kids even though she already had a full house to run on her own. And he started reading meaning into her life that simply wasn't there. When Shazmin exchanged messages with the Memphis rapper Finesse 2 times about her spiritual services, Hunter decided in his own head that it meant she was cheating, and that jealous story became the thing he repeated to anybody who would listen. It matters to say this clearly because her family has always insisted she wasn't stepping out on him at all, and that the whole thing was about his obsession rather than any affair, which somehow makes the rage he carried even harder to sit with. He took that rage straight to social media, where he posted screenshots of her private conversations, went long possessive rants swearing he wasn't going anywhere, and even went live in January to mock her readings and drag her personal life in front of everybody. The clip that opened this video came out of one of those moments, where he sat there talking about the mother of his child like she owed her her whole life. And if you watch it again knowing how this ends, it stops feeling like a petty relationship fight and starts feeling like a warning that nobody managed to stop in time. Watch him build his case against her in his own words.
Look, bro, the whole time, right? My baby mama been doing the whole time in our relationship, and she blaming everything on me, like making me look like the bad person. So look, my baby mama do readings and stuff, right? So this type of stuff she do with her dude clients and the people she do readings, do cleans and stuff like that, but also she do sucking balls and all that also. You know what I'm saying? So when she's telling me, hey babe, I have to work. She have to get off the phone. She doing some bullshit. But check this out. Look at the messages of her and Finesse 2 times. He talking about when you gonna clean me up. She talking about this and that. Check this out.
This wasn't just talk either, because the record shows Hunter picked up an assault charge back in September of 2024, which means the violence in him was already on paper before the worst day ever came. Shazmin, for her part, was done with all of it. She started posting about breaking free from lies, manipulation, and gaslighting, borrowing lines from artists like Glorilla to tell the world she was finally free, and she made it plain on her own page that she was ready to close this chapter and walk into something better. What she didn't know, and what almost nobody truly understands until it's far too late, is that the moment a woman finally decides to leave a man like this is often the single most dangerous moment of her entire life. The last night anybody saw Shazmin truly happy was January 31st, 2025, and she spent it exactly the way she deserved to spend it. She got dressed up, dropped her kids off with people she trusted, left the baby with her godmother, and went live on Facebook from a restaurant, laughing and drinking and planning a rare night out at the club. For once, she wasn't reading anybody's cards or carrying anybody's problems. She was just a grown woman enjoying her own freedom, and you can feel that lightness in the way she was moving. But her viewers saw something she didn't. As she laughed on camera, people watching started to notice that Hunter had slipped into the stream on a fake account just to keep eyes on her, and they tried to warn her in real time. One person typing that they saw him join on the fake page and told him to get off, and another telling her plainly that he was out there and she needed to be careful. She waved it off, poured one more drink, and kept her night going, because after everything this man had already put her through, why on earth should she let him steal one good evening? That choice wasn't her fault. The only person who could turn a warning into a tragedy was the man on the other side of that fake account. More people jumped into the comments as the night went on, some of them practically begging her to be careful because they knew this man and they knew how he moved. And you can feel the dread building in real time even as she keeps her energy up. Later that same night, after watching her live her life without him, Hunter posted his own cryptic messages online, the kind of talk that sounds like a man circling something terrible in his mind. Nobody watching could reach through the screen and stop what was coming, and by the next morning, it was already too late.
I want to go where it's turned up at. Like, I want to hear some music. I want to see some fine ass niggas. I just want to look at handsome men. I just want to look. That's it. And I want to vibe and drink, and that's it. Like, I think I had Cajun Eve before. Hi, baby. The one who's gonna eat this pussy right now. Oh my god, bitch. You freaky ass bitch. Show her how you fuck your baby dad. Look at that. Girl, what the hell? I didn't know all that. When this happened? Slurp. Oh my god, bitch. She's saying slurp. I did not know all that. She said, nah, man, we don't fuck on that motherfucker.
Less than 12 hours later, on the morning of February 1st, 2025 at around 11:48, Hunter drove to her home on Tanner Drive in Copperas Cove. Her family says that when she refused to let him in, he called her more than 100 times in the span of just a few minutes, and then he forced his way inside and shot her. And he did it with her children right there in the home. One of her kids, only 13 years old, had the presence of mind to hide the younger ones and call for help, which is a level of courage no child should ever be asked to find. Some accounts online tried to make the motive about a disputed sum of money, something in the range of $6,000, but her family has firmly rejected that, insisting this was never about money and was only ever about a man who could not accept being left. Police from Copperas Cove rushed to the scene, found her with multiple gunshot wounds, and immediately started trying to save her life before she was rushed to Advent Health Central Texas, where she died. The local news carried the story that same weekend, and the details lined up with everything her family had already been dreading. Watch how the very first reports laid it out.
And a Beaumont man sits in jail tonight charged with the killing of a woman in Copperas Cove near Waco. Investigators found 31-year-old Shazmin Clack with multiple gunshot wounds at a home on Tanner Drive. She died at a hospital. 27-year-old Alonzo Hunter of Beaumont was arrested at a nearby hotel not long after this shooting.
Hunter did not get far at all. Officers tracked him to a nearby hotel and arrested him without a fight, and the following day, a judge set his bond at $500,000. The reporting that came after filled in the rest of what happened once the shots stopped and how quickly the case came together against him. Listen to how the arrest and charges came down.
Copperas Cove police are holding 27-year-old Alonzo Hunter of Beaumont on murder charges following a Saturday morning shooting that left a 31-year-old Cove woman dead. Police were called to the 900 block of Tanner Drive shortly before noon Saturday and found Shazmin Tashawn Clack suffering from a gunshot wound. She was taken to Advent Health Central Texas, where she later died. After interviewing witnesses, police identified Hunter as a suspect. He was found at a nearby hotel and arrested without incident. His bond has been set at $500,000.
What makes this case sit so heavy is how little remorse the man seemed to carry afterward. Even from a jail cell, Hunter kept posting, dropping freestyles and messages that played the victim far more than they mourned the woman he took from the world, saying things about the family finally getting justice as if he were some bystander to his own crime.
They got me locked in Gatesville in Coyle County. Someone I don't belong. Man, this shit is weak. They tryna give us bus cuts, tryna cut our about the head. Like, what the fuck wrong with y'all? I swear to God, this shit.
By August of 2025, though, none of that noise mattered anymore because he was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Prosecutors even weighed a capital murder charge because the children were right there when it happened. And while the case ultimately moved forward as murder, the sentence still means he will die behind those walls. Her family and her community leaned all the way into each other. They started a GoFundMe with a goal of $7,000 to help take care of her 5 kids. They held her funeral that February, where her brother sang a song for her and her baby girl. And on February 9th, they gathered for a pink balloon release in her honor, pink being her favorite color and the exact shade of the brightness she carried everywhere she went. The legal side moved fast around all of that grief. A justice of peace arraigned Hunter the day after the shooting and set that $500,000 bond. And from behind bars, he kept talking, framing himself as somebody the family might one day forgive, rather than the man who created the wound in the first place. The heaviest part of the aftermath falls on the ones who cannot post about it or speak at a podium, which is her 5 children. The oldest, that brave 13-year-old, will carry the memory of what happened in that house for the rest of their life. And the little ones lost their whole world before they were even old enough to understand it. That is why the money the community raised was never really about a funeral bill. It was about trying to hold 5 grieving kids together, keeping the lights on and the school supplies coming and the birthdays from feeling completely empty. No amount of it brings her mother back, but it was the community's way of saying these babies would not be left to face this alone. When the conviction and the life sentence finally landed that August, it closed the case on paper, but it could never close the hole left in 5 children who now have to grow up telling people their mother was taken from them. Online, her death became a rallying cry, with people calling it a case of black femicide and pointing out how Texas alone lost around 146 women to their partners in 2023. There were the usual cruel voices too, the ones who tried to blame her for going out or for the man she chose. But the people who understood these patterns kept the focus where it belonged, on the man who pulled the trigger and the warning signs everybody around her can now see so clearly. And here is the part that ties her story to the next one, because Shazmin's killer was a man trying to be a rapper who lost his whole mind over the idea of another rapper. Our second story flips that completely. This time, the rapper is the one doing the loving, the raising, and the trying to move on. And it was the person closest to him who made sure he never got the chance. Before Raheem Grant ever became a headline, he was a kid with a drumstick in his hand who looked like he might be headed somewhere special.
Hey, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening? Good Sunday, everybody. We alive, we breathing. If y'all looking at this post right now, guess what? Y'all blessed.
Raheem Malik Grant was born on March 30th, 1989 in Fayetteville, Georgia, and by his mother's account, he was already banging on drums by the time he was 3.5 years old. At just 7, he made his television debut on Showtime at the Apollo, which is a massive stage for a grown artist, let alone a little boy standing under those lights. And it lit a fire in him that never went out for the rest of his life. You can hear that same hunger in the way he hyped himself up for the world, the confidence of a man who was sure his turn was coming. Watch him introduce himself to the streets in his own voice.
Yeah! Hey, you already know what it is, man. Your boy Red B's up in it, man. Real DGP, MOB shit, man. Fucking with my boy LO. Know what I'm talking about? Real Boss Connect, man. D4L, you know, King Bankhead, man. Real Southside, Westside shit, man. You know what it is, man. Salute.
He kept feeding that momentum with music, dropping records and remixes and building a name in a city where 1,000 other artists were fighting for the same air. And the fact that he did most of it himself, writing, producing, and engineering, said a lot about how bad he wanted it.
Big diamond rings, big diamond chains on my neck. Boy, I stay like that. Don't fuck with lanes, don't fuck games, my nigga. We don't even play like that.
His catalog wasn't enormous, but it showed a man in motion, with tracks going back to 2013 and remixes that put him shoulder to shoulder with known names in the Atlanta scene. And by 2017, he had real momentum, with reports of a major deal and a tour in the works. A lot of his music dealt with the dangers of street life, which is one of the saddest ironies in this entire story, because the thing that ended up taking him had nothing to do with the streets he rapped about. You can hear that hunger, that certainty that his moment was right around the corner in the way he talked about the plans he was building. Watch him lay out the vision he had for himself.
Okay, man, so basically what we got going on right now for 2015, the new campaign, new project that I'm working on, Red Beezy, DTP, MOB, D4L, Shout It Low, you know what I'm saying?
That drive was the real thing, and he was never shy about the goal either, dreaming out loud the way a lot of young artists do when they can feel their break coming. Hear the ambition sitting in his own voice.
Get money. You already know it, man. I'm trying to get the richest I've never been in my life, you know what I'm saying?
But the biggest change in his life was never a record deal. It was becoming a father. His daughter Angel was born in November of 2014, and by every account she flipped his whole world right side up, to the point where his mother said his whole world's changed the day that little girl arrived. He was so serious about being present that he was actually pursuing full custody in the months before he died because he wanted her with him. To understand how a devoted father ends up dead on his own floor, you have to meet Angel's mother, and you have to understand how far back the warning signs really went. Sierra Harp was also born in 1989, and by the accounts of her own relatives, she came up in a rough and abusive household that left deep scars on her, something her uncle later testified to openly. Her teenage years were marked by fighting, and according to one of her exes, she carried a pocket knife and was even expelled from school after stabbing someone over a boyfriend. None of that is said here to excuse a single thing that came later, and it is important to hold both truths at the same time, that a person can be a genuine victim of their own past and still grow into someone dangerous to another human being. She met Grant in 2013 as a fan who walked up asking for an autograph and a job, and he hired her to help promote his shows before the relationship turned romantic and led to Angel. After they broke up, he mostly kept in touch for their daughter's sake, but his mother watched Harp grow more and more obsessive as his career climbed higher, and she gave her son a piece of advice that turned out to be haunting. She told him to record any confrontation with Harp, to get the video, lay the phone down, and protect himself. By December of 2017, Harp had been evicted from where she was staying and was temporarily back under Grant's roof, and that is the exact setup for one of the most disturbing nights any of these cases has to offer. What makes it worse is how close the two of them once were, because their story did not start in violence at all. Harp had walked into his world as somebody who admired him. He gave her a chance and a paycheck, and for a while they built something real enough to bring a daughter into the world. But as his name grew and his focus shifted toward custody and his career, the version of her that his family described grew possessive and unpredictable, until the same closeness that once looked like love started to feel like a threat he could not shake loose. By her own family's telling, that volatility was not something new. Relatives spoke openly about a childhood full of pain and a teenager who fought often, carried a blade, and once got put out of school over a violent moment tied to a boy. A history that helps explain the woman without ever coming close to excusing her. So when she ended up back at Grant's place at the tail end of 2017 after losing her own housing, you had two people with a tangled past and a small daughter suddenly living under one roof again, and every bit of that old friction finally had a fresh place to catch fire. This is the part where Grant's mother's warning starts to feel less like worry and more like foresight, because she had already seen enough of Harp's behavior to tell her son to keep a camera ready. A mother should never have to hand her child that kind of advice, and Grant should never have needed it, but he took it seriously, and in the most painful way imaginable, it turned out to be the only reason the truth ever came to light. On the night of December 29, 2017, the trouble that had been building finally exploded, and Grant did exactly what his mother had warned him to do. Sensing that things were about to go bad, he started recording on his cell phone, and without knowing it, he captured the last minutes of his own life. According to the footage that police later recovered, he held the camera up to his own bloodied face and told whoever might one day watch it that this was what Sierra Harp had done to him, and then the gunshots started. By the time it was over, Grant had been shot 7 times, including in the back, the arms, and the head, and all of it happened with their 3-year-old daughter present in the home. What that footage showed was not a woman defending herself in a blind panic. It showed Harp picking up the phone and continuing to film, standing over a wounded man who was begging for water and pleading to hold his little girl just one more time, and answering his pleas by telling him he could crawl to her before she fired. A detective who worked the case later said that he had seen a lot of evil in his career, but he had never once seen evil document itself like that. The footage came in pieces, 4 separate videos that together told the whole ugly sequence. It opened with Grant himself, bloodied and holding the camera on his own face, saying, "Y'all see this? This what this bitch did to me," as Harp yelled in the background, and then the gunshots rang out and he went down. From there, the tone flips because Harp picks the phone up and keeps filming, at one point turning it on herself, and the picture that comes together is not somebody fighting for her life, but somebody building a story after the fact. That is the version a jury would eventually see, frame by frame.
He's been beating me for the past 4 years.
And this, they gonna lock you up for life.
I don't care. I do not care. If I go to jail for the rest of my life, I do not care what happens to me because I love you. And you abused me, you know that. You know that. And yeah, you mistreated me. Hey.
When Harp first ran to a neighbor's door that night, she was bleeding, holding the toddler and carrying a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit, and she told a story about being attacked and shooting him just to survive. Investigators actually leaned toward believing her at first because her injuries seemed to back her up, and for a little while this looked like it might be self-defense. The problem was that the video showed no stab wounds on her at the beginning, which pointed to the chilling possibility that she cut herself afterwards to sell that story, and the wound to Grant's head suggested he was already down and completely helpless when it was fired. The autopsy lined up with the footage far better than it lined up with her account. Even getting to that evidence took patience, since the phone was locked and it took time before investigators managed to open it and see what was really on it. Once they did, there was no going back to the self-defense theory. At trial in spring of 2019, the prosecutor leaned on that footage as the centerpiece of the whole case, calling it unforgettable, and it did the heavy lifting that no living witness ever could. The jury came back with a conviction on malice murder and aggravated assault, and the sentencing was actually pushed back for a stretch after one of Harp's own attorneys stepped away from the case. When the judge finally handed down that 125-year term, the room had already sat through the most damning testimony of all, and it didn't come from a cop or a lawyer. It came from Harp's own mother, who stood up in open court and turned all the way on her daughter. Listen to the words a mother chose to say about her own child.
I know for a fact these plans did not include you. Envious nature took control, and you, Raheem, for moving on without you.
Harp could get life without parole. The judge delayed sentence.
By the accounts from that hearing, Harp sneered and muttered under her breath while her mother spoke, which only deepened the sense of a person who could not or would not face what she had done. The case has been pulled apart on true crime shows and podcasts ever since, mostly because that footage is so rare and so cold, but underneath all of that coverage sits the same permanent loss, a little girl who lost her father and her mother in the very same night. Getting into the phone was its own struggle since it was locked, but investigators eventually got the passcode from Harp during a conversation framed around her medical release, and once they were in, the whole picture flipped upside down. Harp was arrested on February 22, 2018, and charged with malice murder and aggravated assault. Her trial in May of 2019 put that footage in front of a jury, with the prosecutor calling it unforgettable, and it did not take much for them to see straight past the self-defense claim and convict her on both counts. The sentencing that followed became one of the most jaw-dropping moments in any of these stories, and a huge part of it came down to who chose to speak. Watch how the local news broke the sentence down, including who took the stand against her.
A woman in Clayton County was sentenced today to 125 years in jail for her her baby's father. Jennifer Bellamy joins us with more. Jennifer, it was a trial with a lot of emotion, some shocking testimony, pitting family member against each other.
It really has, Cheryl. Earlier this month, Sierra Harp's own mother took the stand to urge the judge to give her the maximum sentence and also to sterilize her. The mother upset that the took place in front of the couple's young daughter. Her testimony, a stark contrast to the people who took the stand today to speak in Harp's defense. Now, this story goes back to December of 2017 when Harp shot her baby's father, Raheem Grant, 7 times at an apartment in Riverdale. Grant captured the murder on his own cell phone, and you could hear him begging Harp to let him hold his baby just one more time before he. Harp said no. In court today, Harp's uncle took the stand to ask the judge for leniency. He said Sierra Harp was actually abused as a child, and that impacted her for the rest of her life.
It's written somewhere to train up a child in the way that he should go, and as he gets older, he would never depart from it. That's not what happened here in this childhood.
Other friends of Harp took the stand to testify that she was a good mother, but Harp's own mother said the family tried to help her many times, yet she continued to make bad choices.
Sit with that for a second, because it was Harp's own mother who stood up and asked the court for the harshest punishment on the table, even asking that her daughter be sterilized so she could never have another child. The judge sentenced Sierra Harp to 125 years in prison, which for her is effectively the rest of her life. Harp took the stand herself and apologized, saying that if she had not been drunk, none of it would have happened, but the family across the aisle was not moved. Grant's mother spoke about her heartbreak and about how obsessed Harp had been with her son, and the whole room felt the weight of a baby girl who had just lost both of her parents in one night. In fairness to the full story, this case did not stay simple even after the conviction, and honesty means telling you the rest. Harp always claimed that Grant had abused her for years, and in February of 2025, Grant's own sister, Lavoya Williams, testified in support of a motion for a new trial, saying that her brother put Harp through a lot of mental abuse and that she did not want to see her stay convicted. Harp's newer attorneys argued that her original lawyers had failed her, pointing to things like ineffective counsel and limits placed on expert testimony about battered women. Grant's mother pushed back hard, denying the abuse and accusing her daughter of lying out of jealousy over custody of Angel, and as of the latest reporting, the judge still hadn't ruled on that motion. Both of those things can live inside the same story at once. A relationship can carry real pain on more than one side, and the video can still show exactly what it shows. What does not change, no matter how the appeal lands, is that a talented young father lost his life in front of his baby, that Angel is now raised by her grandmother, and that a phone meant to protect him ended up being the only witness he ever got. That leads us straight into our third story, where there is no rapper and no camera rolling, just a young woman at work on a completely normal morning who never got the chance to clock out. Malaya Best did everything you are supposed to do to build yourself a good life. She was born around 2001 in Chicago, grew up in the suburb of Dalton, and shined in the band at Thorn Ridge High School, where the people around her remembered her for her leadership and her warmth long before any of this ever happened. She graduated in 2019, then packed up and moved all the way south to attend Jackson State University in Mississippi, and after earning her degree, she stepped into the working world as a property manager at Westwood Apartments in Jackson. She was only 24 years old, career-driven, mature beyond her age, and by every account, the kind of person who made room for everybody else before herself. Her old bandmates back in Illinois still talked about the light she brought, the leadership and the laughter, and when the news reached them years later, it hit that whole community all over again. She had done the work to leave home, chase a degree in a new state, and build a professional life from scratch, which is why the people who loved her keep circling back to the same painful thought that she was just getting started. Her family and friends later gathered to honor her back near where she grew up, trying to send her off with the same warmth she gave everybody else. The thing the internet fixated on once the story spread was the 28-year gap between them, a young woman barely out of college married to a man old enough to be her father. People argued back and forth about power and control and what a marriage like that even looked like from the inside. And while no age gap on its own explains a murder, the people who actually knew Malaya kept steering the conversation back to what really mattered, which was how unsafe she had started to feel in her own home. She had reportedly weighed filing for divorce, but held herself back, feeling boxed in and intimidated, which is one of the most common and most dangerous places a person can get stuck, wanting out with everything in them, but scared of what walking away might set off in a man who couldn't handle being left. What stings is that Malaya was by every account the responsible one in that building, the young manager who showed up early, handled everybody's problems, and treated the residents like people. She had built a small, steady life for herself in a new city far from where she started, and she was doing the quiet work of leaving a marriage the right way, moving in with a friend, keeping her head down, trying not to make it uglier than it had to be. She did everything a person is supposed to do to get out safely, which is exactly why her story shakes people so badly.
You're the best part. Oh.
A neighbor who knew her described the young woman that community lost, and you can hear just how much she meant to the people around her.
Malia, she was sweet, understanding. I mean, she had the heart of gold, basically. If you didn't have it, she understood you didn't have it. She gave grace. She understood.
The man she married could not have been walking a more different road. Ron Christopher Allen was 52 years old, a lifelong Jackson resident and a father of 3 who had been through a rough stretch of his own, including a DUI he had fallen behind on, a hip surgery that led him into a pain pill addiction, and a roughly month-long rehab program in New Jersey that he had reportedly just finished that summer, telling the court he had been sober since early July. He was a full 28 years older than Malaya, and once the marriage fell apart, that age gap became one of the very first things people online started questioning. There was even a stray public record trying to tie him to a high-level banking job, but that never matched the man described in any of the reporting, and it is worth treating with caution rather than as fact. And the marriage fell apart fast. Inside of just a few months, the union that started on the most romantic day of the year had curdled into something Malaya needed to escape. They had married on Valentine's Day of 2025, but friends said it got rocky almost right away, and she moved out of their shared home and in with a friend because she simply did not feel safe anymore, telling people she did not even feel comfortable sleeping next to him. She had reportedly thought about filing for divorce, but hesitated, feeling intimidated, which is a fear a whole lot of people in these situations will recognize. Her close friend Manisha Simmons laid out exactly why Malaya made the choice she made, and it is the kind of explanation that lands hard once you know what came next. Listen to her friend explain why she had to go.
She did not want to leave him. She had to leave him, and he didn't want her to leave him. She had to leave him because she just had to for her own safety. As we can see, she did not feel safe sleeping next to him.
There was no long paper trail of physical violence here, and that is exactly why this case matters so much. The danger did not show up as bruises, it showed up as harassment and pressure, and a man who would not take no for an answer. In the days before the worst happened, Allen kept showing up uninvited at her job, and the day before, on July 30th, he even came by the friend's house where Malaya was staying to talk about getting back together. The people who were there said the visit felt calm and raised no alarms in the moment, which is one of the cruelest parts of stories like this, because calm is not the same as safe. The real trigger, according to police, was that Allen had learned Malaya had moved on and was reportedly seeing a maintenance man who worked at the very same apartment complex. For a man who could not stand the thought of her leaving, that was the one thing he could not let go of. Some of what came out about Alan only sharpened the picture. He described himself in court as a father of 3. He was carrying the weight of that DUI he had defaulted on while dealing with his addiction and recovery, and he had reportedly only just come home from treatment weeks before everything fell apart. None of that is an excuse, and plenty of people go through hard recoveries without ever raising a hand to anyone. But it paints a man who was unsteady at the exact moment his young wife was finally pulling away for good. The day before the shooting sits at the center of how unpredictable these situations really are, and one of the people who was in the room described it plainly.
He was actually at my house yesterday on my couch.
Sure was.
And we talked, about them working the relationship out or whatever, and he left. It was nothing alarming. I didn't feel anything.
That's the terrifying thing about it, that a visit which felt like nothing at all came the night before he allegedly took her life, which is exactly why the people who study these patterns keep saying that calm behavior is not proof of safety. The harassment had a rhythm to it in those last days, with Alan turning up where she worked when he had no reason on earth to be there, keeping himself in her space even after she had made it plain that she was done. To the people around her, it read as a man who simply would not accept the word no, and that refusal is the pattern investigators point to as the loudest warning of all, louder than any single threat, the sign that somebody has quietly decided your leaving is not going to be allowed. You can feel the weight of the goodbye nobody knew was a goodbye in the way one of her friends remembered their very last exchange. Listen to the last words they shared.
My last text message was this morning. I told her, I said, "You're gonna be fine. I love you." And she said, "I love you too."
On the morning of July 31st, 2025, shortly after 11, Malia Bess went into work like it was any other day, and Ron Christopher Allen came looking for her. Witnesses saw him at the leasing office right before he stepped inside, and once he was in there, he allegedly shot her 7 times and then barricaded himself with her body as police started to arrive. Because his case is still moving through the courts, the law still calls this an accusation, and he is entitled to that process. But the details officers described that day were as dark as it gets. Watch how the standoff and the horror of it was first reported.
Just before noon Thursday, the Jackson Police Department and other agencies responded to the Westwood apartment complex, where 52-year-old Ron Christopher Allen barricaded himself in the leasing office. Inside with him was his wife, who he is charged with shooting to death. Christopher appeared in court earlier today for the death of 24-year-old Malia Bess. Witnesses say they spotted the suspect at the leasing office Thursday, moments before he went inside and shot his wife multiple times. It was also said that witnesses called Bess's phone during the incident, and Christopher answered, confirming her death. The brief standoff ended when Christopher surrendered to SWAT, who was also on scene. Police say he was covered in his wife's blood.
Sit with how cold that is for a moment. When Malia's people got scared and called her phone during the standoff, hoping to hear her voice, it was Allen who answered and told them she was already gone. The standoff dragged on for somewhere between 2 and 3 hours and pulled in agency after agency, from the Jackson Police Department to the County Sheriff's Department and several neighboring agencies, all of them holding their positions while negotiators worked to talk him out, rather than rush in and risk more lives. The county sheriff later reminded the public that domestic calls are among the most dangerous runs any officer ever makes, and this one proved it, because a single man's refusal to accept a breakup put a whole complex of people and a whole line of officers in harm's way. The chief kept circling back to the plain cruelty of it, the fact that Malia simply went to work that morning like she had 100 times before, and never once imagined she would lose her life at her own job at the hands of the man she married. He talked about how some people never learn to sit with their own emotions, how they can't handle watching someone move on, and how that failure keeps turning ordinary breakups into funerals. It's not a comfortable thing for a police chief to say into a microphone, but it named the exact rot sitting at the center of all 3 of these stories. Jackson Police Chief Joseph Wade went a step further in his public comments, pointing straight at the sickness underneath so many of these cases, saying that too many people simply don't know how to handle someone wanting to move on with their life. That single idea, a person who would rather destroy someone than let them walk away, is the thread running through all three of these stories.
35th homicide of the year compared to 71 this time last year. We've shown a drastic reduction in homicides, but again, this is domestic related. This is a husband taking his wife's life, then putting all of these other people's lives in danger, including law enforcement. Very sad day, but I'm glad that we were able to mitigate this situation without any further loss of life.
Allen was denied bond on August 1st, 2025 because of what the judge called the egregious nature of the crime, and he has been held at the Hinds County Detention Center ever since, with his case still working its way through trial and a court date on the calendar for early 2026. Malia's friend Manisha left behind a warning that everybody watching this needs to carry because it fits all three of these victims, and it might be the single most useful thing in this whole video. Listen to the advice her friend begged other people to hear.
Even if you're not afraid, even if by every single shadow of a doubt in your mind, you think that that person would never do that to you, if they threaten you one time, take it seriously.
The bigger picture behind all of this is not comfortable, but it's worth saying out loud. A huge share of the women killed in this country are killed by the very partners who once claimed to love them, and the danger tends to spike at the exact moment someone tries to leave, which is the cruel twist sitting at the heart of every one of these stories. The signs are rarely invisible in hindsight, and the people around these victims almost always saw something, which is why turning that quiet worry into action is the whole ballgame. So look at what these three lives have in common. Shazmeen Clark was a mother of 5 who spent her days protecting other people from danger and was killed by a jealous ex who could not stand to see her happy without him. Raheem Grant was a father and a rising rapper who was building a future for his daughter and was shot 7 times by the woman who claimed to love him, with their baby right there in the room. Malaya Bess was a young woman who did everything right, who left the moment she felt unsafe, and who was allegedly hunted down at her own job by a husband who refused to let her go. None of them ignored the signs because they were foolish. They ignored them out of love, out of hope, and out of that simple human belief that the person in front of them would never really do it. The lesson underneath all three is hard but simple. When someone shows you that they cannot accept you leaving, believe them the very first time, tell the people who love you, and get all the way out before the leaving turns into the most dangerous part. A warning said out loud, shared with somebody who can help, has a far better chance of saving a life than one kept quiet and carried alone. Rest in peace to all three of them. If you have ever felt that quiet voice telling you something is not right about somebody close to you, do not let this be the video where you just shake your head and scroll on. Send it to the one person in your life you would be terrified to lose, because the whole reason we tell these stories is so that the next name never has to join this list. And if a story like this helped somebody you know recognize the signs in time, drop it in the comments, because you never know who is reading and quietly deciding to finally leave.